Well, guys, I've taken enough of a break now. Let's get back to that thing where I review colorful pieces of plastic for your entertainment. This time, it is the Super Robot Chogokin MagiKing. The second MagiKing I've reviewed for you, actually. Not bad, considering Magi Ranger isn't even in my top 5. Really speaks of how well the mecha is designed. So, right off the bat, let me do this, since the grid kills my color balance here. 6 inches tall, pretty respectable, a little shorter than a figure art, but a full foot wide. That's all in wingspan, which we'll get to in a bit. But first, of course, the details have to come first, since they're easiest to show off. Look at the head sculpt on him. I love this look. I don't know why he has a witch. I still don't know why the male robot has a witch's hat, or maybe it's a female. That would explain the pink pendant around the neck. Well, actually, that's what's left of Magi Fairy. Kind of gets taken up in this combination. No, as you can see, Magi Phoenix takes up most of the chest, as he should. Much sleeker in design than typical. Usually he's a very barrel-chested robot, and not so here. Quite scrawny in the midsection, actually. You can see all the parts from Magitaurus as well, especially in the arms and legs, since he makes up the bulk of the body. All the way through the silver and black, everywhere. A little bit of green to show you which one he is. And the two halves of Magi Mermaid forming the legs as usual, with enormous spikes on the feet. Yes, the nice thing about Super Robot Chogokins is they're kind of free to go all out with the designs. They don't have to worry about it looking like the other forms. And there's Magi Garuda, just in case you wanted to see that one too. So, the end result ends up looking probably as good as the design is ever going to look, since it doesn't have to worry about separating and recombining, which is a nice thing, you know, if you're just looking for a really nice representation of the character. Now, you saw a ton of joints in there too as I went, so back and close to show you a little bit more. Oh, actually I gotta bring it in close so I can show you one specific detail. The neck is fully ball jointed, lots of posing, but more importantly about the head, the hat tilts. There's a joint in the hat so you can tilt it. And there's even a hand for doing this, which I'll demonstrate later. Or maybe I'm demonstrating it right now. I can't tell what I'm going to do once I get into the editor. Moving on, the shoulders. Well, you got the ball joint within the torso, just like a figure art, as well as full joint range here. And if you need a little bit more range, the shoulder guards do freely move up. Rotation, double jointed elbow, though it's kind of weird how it's jointed. One here with that block in the middle. Wrists, of course, ball jointed, since these will be swappable later on. Waist at the torso, as well as at the waist itself. What I really like in this section is all these panels here fold out to a degree to give the legs a little bit more movement. Even those little green pieces have hinges. Very nice. Ball jointed hips, very stiff and sturdy. There's a little bit of thigh rotation, but it's really stiff on mine and really limited. It's not that important though. The knees, 90 degrees, nice clicky ratchet. The legs are die cast, so it can hold its balance pretty well in any pose you want. You can also see a lot of range of movement in the ankles, which of course have a nice ankle tilt to them, which is really important on toys like this. So a little bit of forward and back too, as well as bend in the middle of the foot, for all the little poses you might want to pull off. Very articulate, as I would expect from this series. Certainly a lot more poseable than the last MagiKing I reviewed. I will admit, that one was a brick. Moving on to a look at the accessories, you can see his sword. Very nicely detailed, colored in silver paint all the way through the blade. Like some souped up version of He-Man's sword, with a little bit of green detail just to give us some character. Very nicely detailed. Unique molding on both sides, which I found very interesting. Since I don't know Magi Ranger's toys very well, I don't know if that's accurate. Someone tell me if that's accurate. I am actually curious. and very thin handle, but it looks like it'll hold a pose. So it's very stiff plastic. No worries there. For holding it in either hand, you do have these little fists which can hang on to the sword. Little openings that will allow it to grip on. That's common. You're also going to get this one that's slightly molded differently so the sword can be held in a more forward position. Here's the hand I mentioned specifically molded for the hat tip. And here is an open hand for spellcasting. Wait, did I say spellcasting? Oh, yes I did. Which brings me to my absolute favorite accessory he comes with. Behold, MagiKing Spell Circle. Yes, very thin plastic, but very delicately painted, so you have the impression of a floating magical glyph. Now, it's a little bit easier to see if I put something a little bit more contrasting behind it. There you go. That brings out a lot more of the details there. You can see the emblems for them all the way around, and actually, I doesn't bring out the details too much because I'm trying to avoid the shadow. Here, let me do it this way so you can clearly see all the emblems. Everything painted on. You can also see the names of all the mechs there. There's the fairy, which corresponds to the logo down there. Phoenix up there. And likewise all the way around with the big Magi Ranger logo in the middle. It's a really, really nicely done piece. It has this very nice ghostly effect to it, especially when you're actually seeing it when it's floating around. For this, you have this little tiny stand. This thing is specifically in existence just so you can have this thing properly situated. It doesn't hold it too tightly, so it's not going to damage it. It just kind of leans in there with just enough grip to hold it in place. Which means it's easy to pose MagiKing actually behind it, casting whatever spell you have in mind. And it creates a really nice little dual-layered effect. But it gets a little better because you also have this, which is a custom stem for your Tamashii stages that allow you to have it floating on the top. This lets MagiKing sit on a peg on the top and let the circle float underneath him in a flying pose. Now, while this looks really, really cool, you're probably best not to leave him that way. The die-cast is going to take a toll on those parts eventually. You don't really want to break your Tamashii stages holding him in a pose for too long. Now, you've seen just about everything he does and what he comes with, and I could render my final verdict here. However, there is one more very important element that I really want to talk about. And the best way to demonstrate it is to bring back the last Super Robot Chogokin I reviewed. So here we have Shinken-Oh in a basic sword-swinging pose, but can you really tell exactly what he's doing? I mean, is he coming down from a hard slash? Is he blocking and retreating? Is he just gesturing with the sword? It's really hard to tell. While it's an okay pose, it really doesn't convey all that much after that. But this is where MagiKing has a huge advantage, and it all comes down to one of the best things an action figure can have. Wings. Here's MagiKing in the exact same sword pose, but the wings are able to tell you that this is a really hard slash that he's spinning through. This is why I love this toy so much, because well-articulated wings can convey motion. They can tell a story. They let you know what direction he's going in, what exactly he's doing in a pose. And it adds such a layer, such a dynamic, that it really makes it a joy to pose and really tell a story just by positioning him correctly. And the wings really are well done. The main articulation point at the back allows you to rotate as well as hinge the wings back and forward. But if you really want to, you can extend hidden ball joints in not only the middle section, but the tip. These are specially posed so you can move them all the way around, as well as in and out, without really hindering the look of the toy too dramatically. The same is true up here. There's also that inner hinge that allows it to hide in the first place, giving you even more range of motion. You can put it down in a prone position too, for a little bit more easy displaying, but you're still going to need a lot of room behind him. Luckily, he can be removed if you're having a lot of trouble getting him into your displays. But that is such an incredible detail. I love well-articulated wings on an action figure. And this is a really good example of those. I think I forgot how much I really liked the Super Robot Chogokin line. They continue to impress me every time I pick one up. I mean, aside from just really liking MagiKing's design, this is a spectacular action figure with great articulation, really nice details, sculpted and painted, no balance issues thanks to his diecast placement, and of course, the wings and accessories. Wow, you've got such a range of things you can do with this toy. True, it's not the most accurate MagiKing. In fact, he's probably one of the least accurate MagiKings you're ever going to run across, outside of the Retrofire. But barring that, it is a spectacular MagiKing toy, worthy of any Magiranger fan. Of course, mine came from HobbyLink Japan, and if you want your own, I've left the link in the description below, just so it's a little bit easier for you. And yes, before anyone mentions it in the comments, I know the next Kamen Rider is going to be magic-based. Maybe that's why I was in the mood for MagiKing right now. So, anyone know where I can get the DX version?